In today's video, I will be reading from the r/no sleep subreddit. So let's jump into the first story. I am not sure if this is the right place to post this. This happened to me many years ago, and it has only gotten worse with time. I am 29 years old, and this started when I was around 17 or 18. I've always been interested in the paranormal and things that go bump in the night. One day I was home alone and decided that I wanted to try and see if I could get any ghosts to appear by using my full name, which is uncommon, and my middle name is spelled quite uniquely, almost like an anagram of death. I never really thought about it much until one night when I was home alone. I heard footsteps in the hallway outside of my room. I was freaked out but curious, so I said my full name. Almost immediately after saying it, I heard a loud bang from inside my closet. I didn't think anything of it at first and just went to bed. But the next night I heard footsteps again, and once more I said my name, and there was another bang. I was getting scared at this point. I asked my parents, who had lived in the house for over 30 years at this point, if they ever heard any strange noises in the house, especially in my room. They told me that they'd never heard anything like that before. They did say that the house had some pretty weird stuff happen in it, though. I was unconvinced that it was a ghost and instead decided that it was probably just a branch or something scraping against the window. Tried to convince myself that it was nothing, but still got freaked out every time the wind blew and made the tree branches scrape against the glass. It would always make me jump. But the banging continued, even on days when it was perfectly silent outside. I stopped trying to talk to any spirits in the house after that. Fast forward to me being in my early 20s and living away from home. This is where the story gets weirder. I now live in an apartment, and occasionally I hear sounds that I can only describe as someone walking across the roof. I do think that it's water, because it's too regular, and I live on the 3rd floor. I also do think that it's people because I've never seen anyone up there, and there's no windows. I've asked my upstairs neighbors multiple times if they have a cat or something heavy that they move around, and they always tell me that they do. There's also no vents in the ceiling, so how could anyone be up there? I've never thought much of it. Till last week I was homesick from work, and I swear that I heard footsteps right above me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I could unhelp but whisper my name to see if anything would happen. Immediately I heard a loud bang from directly above me. I rushed to the closet to find that the door had opened. I was shocked because it was shut when I left for work that morning. No one else was in the apartment, and I live alone. I tried to calm myself down and convinced myself that it was just a draft. I knew that it sounded stupid, but I didn't want to believe that there was a ghost haunting me. I decided to test it out a little bit more. Quietly left the apartment and went downstairs. I stood in the stairwell and called up to the apartment, asking if anyone was there. I waited a moment and then called my name again and immediately heard a bang from above. I froze and slowly began to climb the stairs back up to my apartment. I felt something cold brush against my neck and sent shivers down my spine. I got to my apartment, opened the door, and collapsed onto the couch. I didn't want to go back in there, but curiosity won again. I went back into the bedroom and checked the closet. Nothing was in there and the door was closed. I sighed and told myself that I was just making this all up. I couldn't prove that anything had actually happened. I went back to the stairwell to check. Sure enough, the door was open. It had been shut when I left. I don't know what to do. I'm at the point where I can't take it anymore and I want to move, but I couldn't afford to, and I have no idea how to get rid of whatever this is. I don't want to live like this anymore. If anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. Sorry for the typos. I'm on mobile. And thanks for listening. Up next, we have the story titled, "The Closet Door Opens When I Say My Name." I recently moved into an older home with my family, and we are slowly renovating it. Currently, we are working on the 2nd floor, and my son's room has become our temporary living space, while we redo the other rooms. A few nights ago, I was laying in bed watching TV when I heard a noise in the closet. It was about 11 p.m., and my husband and son were already asleep. I stopped what I was doing and listened. I heard what sounded like someone clearing their throat. I ignored it and went back to watching TV. About 15 minutes later, I heard the noise again, this time louder and closer. I told myself that there was a perfectly logical explanation for what I was hearing, but I couldn't come up with one. I decided that the best course of action was to ignore it and eventually went back to sleep. The next night, however, the sound started earlier, around 8 p.m. Again, It sounded like someone clearing their throat. At first it sounded far away, but then it grew steadily closer. I tried not to panic, and I tried to reason with myself that there was a reasonable explanation for what I was hearing. Maybe a bird had flown in and gotten stuck in the closet. I was trying to convince myself of this when suddenly the closet door opened slightly. I watched in horror as the door slowly creaked open and then stopped. I sat there frozen in fear for several minutes before finally convincing myself that it had been a branch scraping against the window. I was shaken but relieved to have a rational explanation for what had happened. That night I slept with the lights on and the TV blaring, both of which were very uncharacteristic of me. I couldn't believe that a silly branch had caused all of that commotion, and that I had been such a scaredy cat. The next night, however, proved to be different. Again, the sound started early, around 7 p.m. Now I was prepared, though. Turned the TV off and decided to wait and see what would happen. As soon as the first sound echoed through the closet, the door began to open. I screamed and scrambled back against the wall as the door swung open. I watched in horror as a dark figure emerged from the shadows. I don't want to be too graphic, but the entity resembled a tall, emaciated man with long, dirty hair and fingernails that were far too long. He stared at me with glowing red eyes and a twisted grin on his face. I don't remember how long we just stared at each other like that, but it must have been several minutes. Then he spoke. His voice was raspy and echoed with an unnatural reverb. "Play with me," he rasped, extending a finger towards the television.
Ow, yeah.
I don't remember responding. I think I may have screamed again, though. The last thing I remember is him lunging towards me. I woke up on the floor with the TV remote clutched in my hand. My heart was pounding in my chest, and sweat covered my entire body. It took me several minutes to realize that I was safe. The closet was empty, and the door was closed. I cautiously approached the closet and slowly opened the door. Inside was just a pile of clothes and some old boxes. Relieved but shaken, I closed the door and went downstairs to tell my husband what had happened. He, of course, didn't believe me, thinking it was just a nightmare. But I insisted that it had happened and that I was too scared to stay upstairs alone. We spent the rest of the night downstairs, and I refused to go upstairs. The next day, we had the local priest come over to bless the house. He performed an exorcism in my son's room, which was the closet's only access. Afterwards, everything seemed fine. But that night, the events repeated themselves. Every night afterwards, the same thing happened. The closet door would open, and the entity would emerge. Each time he would ask me to play with him, but each time I refused. Eventually, I began to dread the nights upstairs and begged my husband to let us move downstairs permanently. He finally agreed, and we've been living downstairs ever since. The closet door no longer opens at night, but sometimes during the day, I hear the faint scratching of claws on wood. I refuse to investigate. That was the end of the episode. And if you like these kind of videos, then be sure to subscribe because I put out new videos like this all the time. Also, if you enjoy these stories, there is a podcast that is run by the author of these stories. They are read by me. You can listen on Spotify or on the app. Also, if you want to send me a story, you can do that through the submission link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.